Hello guys and welcome to another video. So in this video I was looking around on eBay. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of eBay and older hardware, and I came across this little gem, the Dell Optiplex 990. It has an i5 2500, so it's second gen LJ1155 motherboard. It's saying that it runs at 3.3 GHz, but I'm pretty sure all turbo it runs at 3.4, the 2500, but there might be a limitation on the motherboard. 4 gigs of RAM, so we'll need to upgrade that to 8 GB, a 500 GB hard drive, so there's no operating system on the hard drive, I think I said in the comments. Yeah, no hard drive, no operating system, sorry. So an SSD will be needed as well. And this isn't too bad at £60 delivered, but I chucked in a cheeky offer of £50 and he accepted. So this is getting delivered to my door for £50. The full specs is on this sheet right here. So number of sockets 1, CPU is an i5 2500. It has one DDR3 stick in, which is 4 GB, hard drive of 500 GB, hard drive type SATA. And that's everything we need to know, guys. So this is £50, and when this gets to the door, we'll unbox it together. Okay guys, so this is the box that this PC came in, so let's get in it. Okay, so that is now out of the box, and I must say that we're actually pretty well posted for the £50. Quite impressed with that. I did notice though that once the bubble wrap was off, there was some tape here, so I'll lift this up, and we find basically a full list of the specs, which we are going to expect inside here. The i5 2500, you guys can't really see that very well, so I'm just going to open it up. We already know what's inside here anyway. Let's just have a look inside. Take this tape off this bar here. It has less than residue, so we'll have to get that off there. And let's have a look inside. This is the first time I've been here as well, guys. Oh bloody hell, that's tight. That's what she said. Wow, it is tight. Why is that so tight? Okay, so I did finally get into this. I'll explain why it is kind of hard to get into this case. I only realised as I was trying to open it right there. I've done a few of these Dell Optiplex gaming PCs, so I knew something was wrong with the latch somehow, or the case in itself. So I had to actually pry this open. It's not going to be an issue. This could have occurred during posting, but it's worth noticing. If you look on this corner right here, there is a dent, and this makes it harder for the side panel to come off and on, because it's like welded onto the side panel. It's just why it was so hard to get off, but it's not a big deal breaker, just something we have to work with these cheap gaming PCs, I suppose. It's nice to see that we've got an extra SATA cable right away. Okay, no, it's not extra. That's for the DVD drive. That's not even connected. So if you didn't have no computer skills, you would be receiving this without a DVD drive working because it's not connected. So bad point straight away. 500 GB hard drive. The i5 2500. 4 gigs of RAM. What power supply is it? It is a 265 watt power supply. But this is the plan, guys, so let me just put this on top a sec. We are going to be upgrading it with 4 gigs of RAM, and this was £6. We're going to be putting in a GT 1030. These, I picked this up quite a while ago for £30. and a Gumtree ad. I put it in a PC to make sure it was working, but just put it to the side for our project. So that would be nice. I think they only consume 35 watts of power. Don't quote me on that though. I'm pretty sure they do though. 2 gigs of DDR5. So it's like this will make it a low-end gaming PC, and the fact that it's only got 35 watts of power makes it fine with a power supply like this. And then a 120 gigabyte SSD for the operating system. So all in all, this will be £96 gaming PC, and that'll be great as well. So I am going to put new thermal paste on the CPU, get these things installed, and I'll see you after the time lapse. And that is essentially it, guys. The SSD is mounted in by one screw. I've done that before in the past, and had a pretty good success with it. You can mount it up here as well, but you don't get the use of the CD drive then, because this cable can't reach high enough. So to get everything to work, I normally mount one screw through the back hole, move the hard drive down, and it's not as secure as I'd like it to be, but it works as I've done it in the past. Some people like to get double-sided sticky tape and put it on top of the hard drive, but I just get a screw and screw it in with once, and then that's sturdy enough for me. Change thermal paste on the i5 2500. We've added 4 gigs of RAM, so now I've got 8 gigabytes. The GT 1030, we are going to be overclocking this guy as well. And yeah, this is going to be quite interesting. Okay guys, so here it is. The PC is fully done. Now there is a few things we need to talk about first. Let me just switch over to the other screen a minute. Okay, so when I messaged the guy about the dint on the side of the case, it was kind of hard to get in to put an SSD and upgrade this PC. He pretty much straight out said, I'll give you a £10 refund if you just put up with it, which made this PC £40 to the door. So I was like, yeah, no worries man, I'll take that £10 refund. So for £40 we got an i5 2500, 4 gigs, 100 gigabyte hard drive, power supply, which is an absolute bargain. So the fact that that has that dint is even better for us. Let's get back to the video. Okay, so looking at the GT 1030 specs, it's actually 30 watts of power, not 35. So this actually has less power than I thought it did. So with 30 watts of power, we are now going to overclock this thing and see what overclock we can get on this. Okay, so we did get a pretty decent overclock on the GT 1030 of 150 on the core and 200 on the memory. It won't always maximise these clocks, but if it has spare power on the load that it has, it will utilise these clocks. It is definitely better for performance. So actually the case having that dint is actually a benefit for us. Now we're at £86 for this gaming computer. So if you were thrown off by the title, this is why it was £86 in the end. Also the GT 1030 consumes 30 watts of power, not 35 like I thought it did, after looking at these specifications. And also there is an overclock on the GT 1030. It's actually overclocked pretty darn well for a 30 watt card. And that's it guys, let's get to the games. Now some games will play in 1080p. I've got a feeling a lot of games will be 720p low settings with this configuration. I'll always say if it's in 1080p or 720p. So let's get to the games guys. Here we have Fortnite in 1080p, uncapped frame rate, all in low settings, and this played really well, always above 60 FPS. I actually got a few kills in this game. I am by no means a pro at Fortnite, I'm quite happy to say. I think I got about 3 or 4 kills in this game though, so I'm actually quite impressed with myself. But all in all, even if you push this to medium settings, I think you would still be alright. But I left it in low settings, 1080p, and we're always above 60 FPS. In fact, we're always nearly above in the 100 FPS range. But yeah, a very playable experience if you had this sort of configuration. Here we have Halo, 1080p again, and it doesn't really have graphical settings, so 1080p, and we were above 60 FPS majority of the time. We did have a few dips under 60 FPS. It was like the 58, 59, so still extremely playable. I absolutely love the Halo series. And to see this run on low hardware like this, I mean, it is an old game now though, even though it is a remaster, and it's just a masterpiece. So I was quite happy to play on this hardware with this Halo in this sort of FPS range, and laughed at these grunts. Go away, you phantom. Next up, we have Grand Theft Auto 5. Yet again, another popular game still today, even though it's age. And this is 1080p, low settings, and again we're above 60 FPS majority of the time. I don't think this actually dropped below 60 FPS during gameplay. We're in the 80s to the 100 range FPS, so it was an actual good playable experience. I never saved the saves for Grand Theft Auto 5, so I apologise that I used this to benchmark. But it is quite a opening scene and shooting cops when you rob this bank. But yeah, very playable experience. It ran very, very well. Okay, now we're getting to the good games. All games from here on out will be 720p, low settings, the more demanding titles. So here we have Battlefield 5, and from what I could see during the time that I was playing on this level, we were hovering around the 55 FPS to 65 FPS range, so it was definitely playable. And even though this was in low settings, I was quite amazed at how good the graphics looked in this game. And I must say, I can't honestly say that I would use this PC for gaming because I'm quite used to the higher end stuff. But I would be lying if I wasn't impressed. I didn't really see a big difference from 720p to 1080p either. If I was on a low budget, this would be quite a capable solution to gaming on a PC. And here we have another one of my favourite franchises, Gears of War. Low settings, 720p of course, and let's see how this runs. So this actually ran above 60 FPS majority of the time. We did have a few dips into the 50s, as you can see when you go up to this grib hole in a minute. But for this hardware, even in 720p, to pushing out frames like this in low settings, this is impressive. As you can see, we got the dip right there below 60 FPS. But as soon as the enemies disappear, the frame rate soon climbs up to above 60 FPS again, as you can see right there. And again, I would class this as a playable experience. Here we have Far Cry New Dawn, quite a new title. Running in low settings, 720p of course. And I'm running the in-game benchmark, and as you guys can see in a moment, we got an average of 49 FPS. There we go, 49 FPS. I'd have liked to have seen a little bit more than that, but I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker. You could definitely still play at that FPS. Anything above 30, I'd class as a playable experience. It's not something I could play at, but if you don't know any better than more than 60 all the time, you could play it 30 in my opinion. Here we have the Outer Worlds, 720p again, low settings, and this is where it actually struggled in my opinion. We were seeing 40 to 50 FPS during this gameplay, but there was quite a few stutters. That may be a deal breaker if anyone decides to do this sort of setup. I would class it as semi-playable, but yeah, you do get like a lot of stutter, if you know what I mean. A lot of like loading lag back in the day, where the game will load and it'd feel like loading lag. So if that's a deal breaker for you, then this is a title you definitely want to stay away from if you do this sort of setup. But once there's no enemies, you can see the FPS counter climbs up to around 55, 58 area. And this game is definitely a beautiful game when it comes to scenery as well. But I don't think I could play at this FPS range on this game. Here we have Metro Exodus, 720p, low settings. Also, I put this in at DirectX 11, which is the lowest it goes. And if anyone knows anything about Metro, this is quite a hard game to run. We were seeing FPS ranges from the 30s to the high 40s, especially when the enemies start to kick in right here at the beginning of the game. We can see the frame rate cap goes into the 30s. But honestly, it actually still felt kind of smooth, even though we were in the 30 FPS range. The game did feel smooth and there weren't no stutters, so I could actually play in this sort of FPS range. It felt as long as it feels smooth, I can play in that scenario. But as you can see, as the enemies go, the FPS climbs up again to the 55 area. So I would class that as a playable experience. Here we have Forza Horizon 4, 720p in the very low preset. And as you guys can see in the top right, the FPS counter is going there. This game has a problem with the MSI Riva tuner, so I can't have the system specifications up on the left. But as you guys can see on the top right where the FPS counter is, we are above 60 FPS in low settings. And even in low settings, guys, this game is absolutely beautiful. The scenery is absolutely beautiful. If you actually ever get a chance to run this in Ultra, oh, it's just, the graphics are gorgeous. So 720p low settings, you are laughing when it comes to this game. It's really, really well optimized. You can just lose yourself in this game. But yeah, it did run Forza Horizon 4 very, very well. And the last game I'm going to try today, guys, is Just Cause 4. 720p, yet again, low settings. And we are seeing the 40 to the 50 range during gameplay. Again, this is playable. There was no stutters. I didn't actually know how to use the grenade launcher right there, but I did figure it out. Even with the explosions in this game, we never went below 40 FPS. And just look at that scenery, guys, in low settings. That's the most beautiful 44 FPS I've ever seen. Alright, let's summarise, guys. So, £86. Would I recommend it? Yes and no. If you're on a really tight budget and you want to get away from console gaming and you've only got £100, you could do this for £100. Where would I change it? Okay, so the power supply is not the best of power supplies, but the GT 1030, I would upgrade that. If you've got the budget for it, either go 1050 2GB or 1050 Ti 4GB. You're going to see an immense performance upgrade right there. The only thing that I think would hold that back is probably the i5 2500, because you might see some more bottlenecks on the CPU reaching 100%, bottleneck on the graphics card. Apart from that, you could even upgrade the CPU to an i7 2600 or an i7 2700 to remove those bottlenecks. There is an upgrade path for this, but obviously it includes more budget. But I thought for £86 this wasn't too bad. In 720p you could pretty much play all games I've thrown at it with decent frame rates. Not always 60 FPS, but playable frame rates, should we say. And it wasn't too bad. It was a fun project and I enjoyed working with it. So that's the end of the video, guys. If you like this project, give it a thumbs up, get subscribed if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.